What's up, people? So, I wanted to do this for a while, a Star Wars tier list with all the movies and TV shows, but I wanted to wait until Obi-Wan Kenobi came out because, like, that was the most hyped thing for a while for me, too. So, yep, now that it's out, I've done a review on it, which you can check out up here. Um, I want I think now's a good time to do a tier list on Star Wars. And yep, you can see right here I have of all the movies, all nine the Skywalker Saga movies, the two solo or standalone movies, and then the all the TV shows. And yep, now I have my opinions on these are actually super various because you can see I have six tiers here, or actually no, I have seven tiers counting them again. So yeah, my opinions are like really various. So uh, I don't know if that's like you, but that's just me. Um, so yep, I've got an S tier, which has some of the best content in my opinion. You also have the great tier, which is almost there, but not quite. You have good, which has some really awesome stuff in it, but not quite great. Then you have okay, which is just kind of whatever. Don't care, which means I've only seen it once or twice and don't really want to think about it or need to think about it. Bad, as in, yeah, I don't like this at all. Trash means like it's absolute bad tapudu. Just it's just ridiculous. So yep, that's my tier list. So it because this is Star Wars we're talking about, where everybody has their own opinion and it's kind of divisive. Just like The Last Jedi alone is a divisive movie. So yeah, I guess I do have to throw this out here. These are just my opinions. This is what I think about these. You can think totally different, and that's fine. I'm not gonna say you're wrong. Please don't think I'm wrong. Nope, nobody's wrong. This is just what I think. You can have a completely different idea of what you want to rank these. That's fine with me. Not gonna say you're crazy. So yeah, with that thing that feels like I shouldn't have to say out of the way, um, let's get into this. And I guess a little warning, because Star Wars is literally my favorite movie franchise of all time. I might like I can tend to ramble, like go on way too long. So I'll try and hold back, but yeah, prepare for some of that. All right, so I have this all in the order of what order I'm going to talk about them. So here we go. Starting with, of course, the Skywalker saga, episodes 1 through 9. And so we're obviously going to go to the beginning with episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So, uh, so I've seen some people say it's the weakest one, but that was mostly before the sequel trilogy came out. And well, actually, episodes 1 and 2 have a fight on which is the weakest one. But yeah, again, I've watched these movies, all six of these movies, hundreds of times. So I've come to really love them all. So episode 1, believe it or not, I'm actually going to put in good. I actually think this is a good movie. Like, when I was watching it to prepare for Obi-Wan Kenobi, I honestly forgot how much I enjoyed it. Like, the plot is apparently super complicated for a lot of people, but no, I was able to follow it perfectly fine. Like, I would say out of all the movies, this is definitely like the most like a kids movie, which I think works really well considering the age Anakin is. And the pod race sequence is obviously really intense. I legit found myself at the edge of my seat. And then of course you have the epic lightsaber fight between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul. Like, that is legit my favorite lightsaber duel in all the movies, and you can't convince me otherwise. Um, and then there were a lot of other fun stuff too. You know, Liam Neeson's in this, and can't help but love the guy. And obviously, Darth Maul's cool. Well, um, so I enjoy this movie. If I have any complaints, really, probably the same complaint George Lucas has, because like there is a behind the scenes footage of like Lucas watches like the climax of the movie, and he talks about where the guy talking to him talks to him about how the climax is a little messy, where you'll go from like Qui-Gon dying to like Jar Jar or doing some slapstick, and like that kind of like transition. And Lucas would even said in that clip, I think I may have gone too far in some places. So that's what I would say. Yeah, it's probably the biggest complaint, where there are four battles happening at the same time, and they don't really mesh that well. Like, and yeah, not much else there. Overall, I really enjoy this movie, even if a lot of people don't like it. I want to go on a rant about why I think you shouldn't skip it, but I've talked enough. Um, on to Attack of the Clones. My opinions on this one have kind of gone back and forth. Like, again, people say, is it better or worse than Episode One? My opinions have kind of gone back and forth. As of now, I think it's not as good as Episode One. It's still in the good category for me. So I think with this one, well, it's a little boring. It's not boring, but it is a little, where you have Anakin and Padme having their romance, and you have Obi-Wan going through the mystery of finding Jango Fett and all that, and both are really interesting, but there's not that much action. In fact, Lucas even threw in that whole droid factory sequence because there wasn't enough action. So that should tell you something. And like, it's kind of like the Avengers, where I'm just kind of sitting here, like, I'm enjoying it, but it's also like, can we get to the spectacle already? The second they get to the Geonosian arena where they fight the monsters, from there on to the credits, the movie is fantastic. Like, you've got, again, the fighting the CGI monsters, which I think look pretty good for 2002. You've got the lightsabers coming out of the Jedi's robes, and the Jedi just fighting. Like, that was a dream come true, seeing all those Jedi. And you have the clones coming in, obviously beginning the Clone Wars, and you have the awesome Dooku fight, and even Yoda fighting, which I know a lot of people don't like that, but I do. I remember seeing that as a kid and thinking, that is so friggin' cool. So, yeah. So, Attack of the Clones isn't a great movie, and as of now, I don't think it's as good as Phantom Menace, but I still really enjoy it. And just the lead up, like, it's a good, like, really slow build up to Anakin's turn to the dark side, leading into the next movie. Obviously, that being Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And it's trash. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. I'm just kidding. Um, so, I've really thought about this movie for a long time. It's one of those movies where every time I watch it, it literally gets better and better. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put it in the S tier. Yeah. Revenge of the Sith is awesome. Like, out of the three prequels, actually, maybe out of all six of Lucas's movies, this is probably the most ambitious movie, especially when you consider it was originally 4 hours long. Like, that was the original cut before Lucas was like, maybe that's too long. Like, that should tell you how, like, really ambitious and passionate he was. And you can tell when watching this movie. It is just again, I put it in the S tier, and you can see why, or I'll explain why anyway. You've got Anakin, and like it's his story. The first two movies have built up why he wants to turn to the dark side, why he wants to join Palpatine. When the original trilogy came out, a lot of people thought Anakin was always a bad person, but these movies reveal that he was actually a tragic person, and I really felt it, man. And you got the lightsaber duels, like you got the Mustafar fight. Order 66 is sad. This is probably has John Williams' best score, though I might have to think about that one a bit. Actually, it might be because it has some of the most memorable tracks, and you got Palpatine hamming it up, being like the cartoony bad guy, and I love it. And just yeah, pretty much everything people have said about this movie, it's great, and the memes especially have brought it up even further. It's kind of like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. The memes just make it even better. So yeah, like I honestly I could go on and on about how good Revenge of the Sith is, but again, just gonna stop there. Don't want to ramble. So So that's the prequels. Now we move on to the original trilogy, where it all began, starting with, of course, Episode 4, A New Hope. So I remember when I went to rewatch it. For some reason, my brain was kind of like thinking, does it hold up that well? Because out of all the movies, I would say this one holds up maybe the least. Like in terms of like the continuity, if so, like because obviously this is the first movie and Lucas had some ideas back then, but he would like go back on them, like he would change his mind every now and then. And so yeah, that's what I was thinking. But no, I would say this is still great. This is still in the S tier. Obviously this movie started it all, and that should definitely like deserves praise. It's like without this movie we wouldn't have Star Wars. Just think about that. And just it just does a really good job introducing this galaxy, but it doesn't like give much exposition on it. It just kind of gives it to you, and you're somehow able to follow what's going on just fine. I mean, um and like just the questions this movie raises too makes you want to know more, or like what were the Jedi like, what's Darth Vader like. And you know, it is like when people think of the hero's journey, they mostly go to this movie with Luke's character, how he goes from a whiny farm boy to blowing up the friggin' Death Star. And just yeah, some bits don't hold up because again this is the first movie, but it still holds up for the most part. It's really good. And then we go to The Empire Strikes Back, which a lot of people consider the best movie, and I'll admit I think I prefer Revenge of the Sith just a tad more. But yeah, Empire is still great. Still in the S tier. Like just again, people have talked about this movie over and over, Empire Strikes Back. You know, it's one of those obviously back then back in the 1980s sequels were normally just kind of trash, where they just kind of did the same thing, just kind of like gave you what you wanted it again. But no, this one like it takes what worked in A New Hope and like makes them better and like elevates it to the next level. Like A New Hope is where Luke is kind of like a standard hero, but this movie like brings him up to a greater character where the hero's journey is questioned. Like, why is he a Jedi? Why does he want to become a Jedi? Why is he doing this? And breaking it apart too when you discover the twist at the end where I don't need to say spoiler alert, but spoiler alert, I guess Yeah, Darth Vader is Luke's father. I'm kind of surprised I have to say that, but there you are. You know, the twist is there, and like again, it really breaks apart the hero's journey, where it's like, wait, could Luke become this monster? And yep, pretty much everything about this movie is great. It's kind of like I've seen a good description about it being talking like it's basically A New Hope, but in reverse. And when you think about it that way, it's even better, I would say. Hey, and then on to Return of the Jedi, the finale of the original trilogy, and before the sequel trilogy, the finale of the saga. And this movie has problems. I'll admit that, but dadgummit, it is in the S tier for me. I would even go so far to say it's better than A New Hope. Like, I'll admit, when I think of Return of the Jedi as an S tier movie, I mainly think about the last 40 to 50 minutes of the movie. Because, like, but everything before that is okay to great to kind of what? Because, you know, the whole rescuing Han Solo thing does kind of drag the movie, where it's like, did we need to spend so much time on that before the plot actually gets going? And then you have the whole Ewoks when they show up, and the plot kind of stops again, and to like spend some time with them. But I would say the second you get to the moment where Luke and Leia are sitting there and talking, Luke talks about why he's going to face his father. The second it gets to that moment, the movie is great from there on out. It's just like pretty much everything, I would say. I mean, maybe the Ewoks fighting the Empire is a little silly, but they're silly anyway, so what do I expect? And, you know, just the whole finale, it really feels like this is the culmination of everything that's been built up so far, with not just the original trilogy, but with the prequels behind it as well. Just makes the finale even better. Or like that's part of why I always fight in my brain, like, maybe you should watch the prequels before the original trilogy for the first time, because it makes the ending feel so much cooler. Or like pretty much every scene in the Death Star with Luke, Vader, and Palpatine is just again S tier, and it definitely feels like it's the most well thought out, and just seeing Luke throw the lightsaber away, completing his journey as a Jedi Knight, and then seeing Vader pick him up and throw him down the reactor shaft, and Luke taking the helmet off and telling him he was right, that there was still good in him, is just it's just really good, guys. It's really good. There's just so much about this movie is just awesome. And the overall movie is just kind of definitely has some drawbacks, but just the good stuff, the really good stuff outweighs the bad, I would say. So yeah, Return of the Jedi is great for me. By far the third best movie. Now on to the sequel trilogy, which, oh boy, I actually did some YouTube videos on these movies, but you wouldn't want to watch them. They're actually pretty bad videos, so just yeah, don't yeah. But anyway, it's a sequel trilogy, which are again they're a whole can of worms. But let's really get into them. Starting with starting with the Force Awakens. So yeah, when I first saw the movie, I enjoyed it. It was like, oh yay, Star Wars is back. Like it's kind of that feeling, and yeah, I was with everybody where I was excited to see where this can go. Oh, but then the whole trilogy comes out, and you look at this movie on its own. Like after the whole trilogy comes out, and then you look at this movie as its own thing, what is there? I don't know. Just it just kind of like, I hate to say it again, but I will. It is literally just a beat for beat redo of A New Hope, and they're just so, like, it's one of those movies where the more I think about it, the worse it gets. Where um like, just the things it does is just kind of like, oh wait, no, that's bad. Like, oh, you thought the Empire was destroyed in Return of the Jedi? Nope. There's a version of them back now. It's called the First Order. It's not really the Empire, I guess. Oh, you thought Luke was gonna restart the Jedi Order? No, now he's in hiding for whatever reason. Oh, you thought like the Sith were gone? Nope. They're whoever Snoke is. He's back. Oh, you thought Han and Leia were gonna be together or marry, have lots of kids? Nope. After having one kid, they break up. It's just like, it just does so many things to redo A New Hope, and it kind of infuriates me. So yeah, I actually would put this in the bad tier. A lot of people still enjoy this movie, and that's fine. But for me, just the things it does is just kind of ridiculous, and it raises too many questions. Like, back then when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, yay, lots of questions about where this could go." But then I thought about that and realized, wait, that's a bad thing, because it raises too many questions. It has so many things where you go, "Huh?" and like this, like, the answers to those questions will obviously not be that satisfying. It kind of wrote the next two movies in a corner. And let's get to those next two movies. Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Yeah, just saying those words out loud is kind of like, oh boy, because of how divisive this movie is. And believe it or not, I would actually put it over The Force Awakens. I still think it's bad. Like, it is a bad Star Wars movie. Like, just the way it contradicts, again, the established lore. Oh, you have Yoda dead, strike lightning from the sky to burn a temple. What? And then, like, oh, apparently force projections from across the galaxy are a thing now. Which, again, the more I thought about it, I was kind of like, oh, wait, that's not that great. And again, almost, again, a slap to the face to the original trilogy. Oh, you thought Luke was going to restart the Jedi Order? Oh, but now he's on an island somewhere. Oh, there must be a reason, right? Like, maybe he's like planning the First Order's demise or something. Nope, he's given up. He freaking gave up, and it is, which I was okay with the idea at face value, but when you watch the actual movie, it's like, wait, but why? Why is he broken? Why is Luke this way? The only justification the movie gives is that flashback where he goes to kill Ben. And the problem is, there is no context around that flashback. Like, we don't know what happened leading up to that moment. So as a result, this feels out of nowhere. Er, like, I don't know why Luke would turn out this way, because I don't know how he did this. It's like, it made me realize, wait, the 30-year time gap between episode 6 and 7 was a mistake. It should have picked up way, like, sometime after episode 6, like, not that long. But the reason why I put Last Jedi over Force Awakens is I at least got the feeling that there was passion behind it. And I would say, out of all the movies, this is probably the prettiest looking. Like, director Ryan, I haven't seen director Ryan Johnson's, like, any of his other movies, but he's a good director, judging by this one. And like, I even saw found a quote from him where he talked about how he wants to make Star Wars like feel new. Like he always just tries to find ways to make it feel as fresh as possible. And I got to respect him for that. So I respect this movie for trying to do some new things, like find new twists on old ideas. Problem is, it feels so alienating from the rest of the franchise. Yeah, I know it sounds contradicting saying, wait, Force Awakens is too similar and that's bad. Wait, Last Jedi is too different and that's bad. Like, there should be a balance between those two extremes, and those two do not balance. And now we go on to the Rise of Skywalker, which, again, I could again do a whole video on this movie, but for now, it is trash. Like for me, this is by far the worst of them all. This is the worst movie, and like worse than any of this. So yeah, just again, this is like it seems to be a thing with J.J. Abrams where he has to retcon so much to make his story work, and it is so obvious because again, oh, you thought Palpatine got killed at the end of Episode 6? Nope, he's back, and we're not going to explain how he came back. Oh, you thought Rey's parents were nobody? Nope. Well, her parents were nobody, but her grandparents, on the other hand, like, okay. Oh, you thought, what else? Like, actually, what else is there? Like, oh, you thought the First Order was the only threat they had to deal with? Now there's like Starkiller Base, like they blew it up. Now they have freaking Death Star destroyers where they can blow up planets from these ships. Huh? Just and not only that, it's a bad movie. Like at least Last Jedi is a good movie, just a bad Star Wars movie. This is a bad movie in general. Like the pacing is just it moves way too fast. I can still remember the first time I watched it. I got lost at a few places because of how fast it was moving, and it is like there's so little. There are few moments where characters will just sit down and talk, and it is just no plot beat, move to the next plot beat. Like we gotta get the plot moving, we gotta get it moving, and it's kind of frustrating. And like the things this movie does is just ridiculous. I kind of feel bad because J.J. Abrams had a lot of pressure on him, but this was not the way to do it. I'm sorry. It's awful. And yeah, I will die on the hill saying this is awful. So, yep, that's it. That's all right. So now we've gone through the whole Skywalker saga. Now let's move on to the two anthology movies, starting with Rogue One, which I actually haven't seen Rogue One in a while, but from what I remember, it's great. It's actually pretty good. It is. It's well, actually, no. I have to rewatch it. But I actually it's a little it's a little hard. Maybe it's in good. I don't. Again, I need to. I haven't seen this movie in a long time. Maybe I should have rewatched it beforehand. But I remember Rogue One being really good. Where the first half is a bit messy, but then the second half is fantastic. With the whole climax with the Battle of Scarif and especially the Darth Vader moment are really good. And especially when you consider like just I wasn't sure if they were gonna kill off all these characters because they weren't gonna be in A New Hope, but they went for it, which was kind of surprising to me. And actually there's something I really like about this movie, and that's that it really adds to the idea that these are a bunch of nobodies. These are a bunch of like random people from the galaxy, and yet they make without these people doing what they must, the events of the original trilogy would not have happened. These people made a difference in the galaxy, despite being no names, despite being characters that not many people remember the names of. Like, that's actually kind of powerful. So, like, it's one of those things where did it need to exist? Not necessarily. But am I glad that it exists? Absolutely. Hey, so yeah, maybe I'll change my mind because I think I am gonna rewatch Rogue One before Andor comes out. But yeah, moving on to Solo, which I also haven't seen that in a while, but I don't care. So yeah, that pretty much tells you it's in the don't care tier. Here, just unlike Rogue One, where I felt like it justified its existence. Did we need this? Did we need to know that Han Solo's name, like his surname, came from the Empire? Which if that's true, why did Han keep that name? Like, I still don't get that. And did we need to know a lot of this? Just this is like one of the most pointless things I've ever seen, where I am genuinely question why did we need this? But is it a bad? It's not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie because I like people have said it's an enjoyable movie, and I remember enjoying it. Yeah, the guy like the new Harrison Ford, like obviously he's not Harrison Ford, but I think he's like he does the best he can, and I actually respect him. And you know, obviously Donald Glover is great as a younger Lando, and and another thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the fact that you know Han meets Chewbacca. He gets the blaster pistol. He gets the Millennium Falcon. He does the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. He meets Jabba the Hutt at the end. He shoots first for the first time. Like all of that, and a couple other things. All of that happens within a span of like a couple days. Like, I really think if you're going to tell Han Solo's like origin story, you should have done it as a TV show. Because seeing all of this happen within a span of a 2-hour movie is just kind of ridiculous. Where it's just unbelievable that all this happened. So, yeah, like all of that definitely holds it back from being a good movie or even an okay movie. I just don't care about this. But again, I somewhat respect like parts of it, but not much. Uh, I've only seen it twice. Like once for the first time, just wanted to, and then the other to prepare for the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, I've seen parts of it at other points, but yeah, not much else. All of that Darth Maul scene is pretty cool. I'll give it that. Like, I'm still curious what that whole thing is about. So that's all the movies, all 11 movies. So now we move on to the TV shows. And we will start with live action since we're still on that. Obviously, we will go with The Mandalorian. So I made a whole video talking about like ranking each episode of The Mandalorian, which if you want my full thoughts, you can definitely check that video out. But in short, this show is in the S tier. I am going to go that far. I've seen a lot of people say it's only loved because it's at least better than the sequel trilogy. I would disagree with that because the reason why The Mandalorian is so good, in my opinion, is it takes this character who you almost never see the face of. You barely see the guy's face, and yet the emotion and the character development behind this guy is so well done. Like he starts off in season 1 as a cold-blooded killer. He only like does bounties and that's all he does, and he'll forget about them after that. But then he meets a little child that brings a softer side out of him of what he used to be. And he ends up caring for the kid, even going so far to go against his own, like the bounty hunter stuff. And then in season 2, he ends up going to find the Jedi to bring him over there with the with some pretty cool cameos from Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, obviously, and Luke Skywalker at the end. And it all leads to a really sad goodbye, where he ends up giving him away, which, yeah, just, I really felt that. And it's like, unlike the next show I'm going to talk about, where the old characters kind of overshadow the new characters, like this show still remembers this is about Mando, and he gives him his own time to shine. So yeah, like maybe season 2 relied a little too much on fan service, but that doesn't really bother me too much. Just, if you ask me which season was better, I don't really know. I would just say they're both equally good. That's my thoughts, at least. So, yep, that's The Mandalorian. I cannot wait for season 3. It's going to go bigger, I know that. Now we move on to the Book of Boba Fett. So, again, I've done a whole video on that as well. And yeah, just, I'll admit, the episodes where the Mandalorian like takes over and Boba Fett's barely in it, those episodes are great. Like, and also just seeing Luke talking to Grogu, and his first meeting with Ahsoka. Well, it's not his first meeting, but like the first time we see Luke meet Ahsoka, and like Grogu's choice, it's all really well done. But as an overall package, the show is a mess. Where it is just like, again, those great things I mentioned bring this show up to okay, but the bad stuff in it is also brings it down too, because the pacing and the structuring of the show is super wonky. It is just mind-boggling how much they messed up the structure and the pacing. You spend the first 4 episodes about Boba Fett, and like you switch between the story of what he's doing after we saw him in Mando season 2, but also you go back in time to what he was doing after he got out of the Sarlacc pit, and they keep switching between these two stories. And then the flashbacks are over, so it's like, oh, so we're going to spend the next 3 episodes getting back on track. But then in the next 2 episodes, focus on Mando, and it's so off track. I cared more about what decision Grogu was going to make at the end than anything Boba Fett was doing. And then the finale has to try and tie all this together. Like, the finale has to figure out, oh shoot, we have 3 stories at the same time. We got to tie all of that together in like only under an hour long, and it's a mess. Like, it's kind of laughable how much of a mess this was. And oh, and Cad Bane too. He was awesome when he showed up, and I loved seeing him. But then they just kill him, just like that. And I kind of like it, but I also like, that was it, really? Like, just wow. And then it ends on Mando too. It literally, before the credits of the last episode roll, it ends on Mando and Grogu, which is like, how, this is just so off track. Like, I did not think a show called The Book of Boba Fett would do stuff like that. And why is it called book anyway? I still don't get why the word book is in there. But yeah, this is a mess. Like, I'll definitely rewatch the Mando episodes, obviously, but the first 4 episodes are just kind of underwhelming. Where, yeah, they really felt like there was just something missing, and I can't explain what it is. So it's a mess. The Mando episodes, again, are great, and it definitely brings it up here, but the pacing holds it back big time. All right. And now for the most recent show, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And again, and I explore my thoughts further in my video, but yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi is unfortunately okay. Again, that's sad to say for me because I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's literally my favorite character in all of Star Wars. And to see a show with his name on it and then it's just okay. That's a letdown, guys. Like it's not bad. I don't. A lot of people say it's bad, and I don't think it is. There are definitely bad elements about it. Like the plot is definitely pretty dumb at points. Like why did they capture Leia? It's really weird how Reva is able to figure all this out, and why does Reva end up on Tatooine at the end? Oh, because Bale had that message for some reason, and Obi-Wan just kind of leaves Vader there at the end. It's really mind-boggling. So there are definitely some things about the show that are pretty dumb. But there is some really good stuff too, where like whenever Darth Vader is on screen, it is definitely great. Like Vader brings it up just with him being on screen. And I love seeing him tower over Obi-Wan when he's still weak. And I love seeing him like beat Reva up too. And the final battle, like the rematch of the century, as Kathleen Kennedy called it, is pretty sick too. And oh, and the flashback with Obi-Wan and Anakin is actually really good too. And it's like there are definitely a lot of elements about this show that are great and make me glad I watched it, but it is just kind of sad that it's not great or even S tier. Like it's not as good as The Mandalorian, which really ticked me off. Like it can't be up there, but that's just how it goes. So yeah. So that's all the live action stuff. Now we move on to the animated stuff, which okay, I was gonna mention this in the beginning, but here it is. So there are two other animated shows I know some people might ask me about. Like, what about the Visions show, the anime show? And to be honest, I haven't seen it, and I don't really care that much, just because I'm not really an anime guy in general, and it's not even canon, so I don't really see a reason to see it. I mean, somebody on Facebook told me to at least watch the first episode, so I might do that. And then the other one is the Tartakovsky Clone Wars series from back in the early 2000s, and it's not canon, so I didn't include it in this. But if you want to know my thoughts real quick, it is really great. It is fantastic, and I would put it in the great tier. So yeah, I'll just say that. But yeah, moving on to the animated shows, which it's kind of weird to think there are only four, but whatever. Moving on. So of course we will start with the Clone Wars, the last bit of Star Wars to come before Disney, when the last bit where George Lucas worked on it. And yeah, for me, the Clone Wars is in the S tier. It's maybe a little better than the Empire Strikes Back, just a touch. Just like the great stuff in this show are are really great. And oh, and if you're wondering about the Clone Wars movie, well, I personally just count that movie as a part of the show because it was intended to be that way. So that's just how it works in my head. But yeah, the show is fantastic. Just pretty much. I mean, yeah, season one is a little bit rocky, but I've seen people say the same thing about season two. But no, I think season two is really good. But it's like I don't think season two has a single bad episode. And then obviously season 3 that's when the show starts getting really good. You've got like Ventress becomes more interesting. You have the Mortis arc is really good, like really confirming that Anakin is the chosen one, whatever these movies say. And then you have and then in season 4 you have the Umbara arc, which is also really good. And like you really feel the hatred the clones have against Jedi Master Pong Krell, or he's a Sith Lord in the end. And then you also have the slavery arc, which it really emphasizes Anakin's turn to the dark side later. And obviously, Darth Maul comes back, and they made him so much more interesting to the point where I wanted to know what happened to him. And then season 5 has some great stuff. You have the what's it, Onderon arc with Saw Gerrera, and you also have the Gathering arc with all those Padawans. More Darth Maul, where he takes over Mandalore, or with Darth Sidious fighting at the end, and Ahsoka, of course, leaves at the end of the Senate. She leaves the Jedi Order, which, man, just it is heartbreaking because Ahsoka is one of my favorite characters, and like the show really shows the growth from just a bratty kid to an almost adult. Well, then season 6 has some good stuff with Order 66, or at least it being foreshadowed, I mean, and Yoda going on a trip to discover about more of the Force, which is really interesting. And obviously season 7 coming years later, after a long time, and you've got the Bad Batch arc, which is pretty cool. The Martez Sisters arc is okay, but the Siege of Mandalore arc is phenomenal. Man, I could do a whole video on that too. The Siege of Mandalore was the perfect way to end this series. End it on Ahsoka and Rex and Maul, the 3 most interesting characters in this show. And just so much about this show is phenomenal. Oh, and it's some of the best Star Wars ever. And again, some of the last George Lucas out there too. So, yeah. And then we move on to Rebels, which I understand why some people aren't a huge fan of this, because it is definitely a lot more kid friendly and the animation is a lot more toned down. But I still think Rebels is actually pretty great, in the great tier. Like, yeah, Rebels has a lot of filler episodes, but there are a lot of really good episodes too. Like, it has a similar thing with Ezra Bridger that Ahsoka had, where he starts off as a bratty kid who cares only about himself, like the Aladdin kind of character, before he actually grows into a full-fledged Jedi Knight, even willing to potentially sacrifice himself towards the end. And then Kanan is also really interesting, and I legit felt bad when he died. And you also have Hera Syndulla, who's also really cool. Sabine Wren is also really interesting. And then when I also bring back Clone Wars characters, it gets even more interesting. Ahsoka comes back and she has her fight with Darth Vader, and it is just so friggin' good. And you also have Rex coming back and helping form the rebellion, and then you also have Darth Maul coming back again, and the episode where he's on Tatooine and he fights Obi-Wan, that is by far my favorite episode of that show. It is just, yeah, that episode alone is an S tier here. So, yeah, like this show is almost an S tier, but again, it is literally rated TVY7. So just that fact brings it down a little, because it is a lot more kid friendly. It's a lot less violent, and so that definitely holds it back from S tier. But overall, Rebels is still great, I would think. I think at least. And I can't wait to see Ahsoka, which is going to pick up after this. On to. This is probably the one I had the least to say about Star Wars Resistance. So, yeah, that pretty much tells me everything. I don't really care about this. Like, I saw this show one time. I watched through the whole thing. It's only 2 seasons, so it wasn't that much to go through. I watched the whole thing, and that's about it. I kind of just watched it. There's really not that much to say. Like, it's one of the few things about Star Wars that I can say you literally can skip this because it has no connection to the rest of the story, or even a connection to Clone Wars or Rebels, which is weird considering Dave Filoni is still in charge with this one. And I mean, just what does this have to do with anything? It's just a story about these random characters during the sequel trilogy era, just doing their own thing without connecting to these movies at all. Like, I guess there's a connection with uh, the main character's planet being one of the planets Star Killer Base blows up, but that's about it. Just there is almost nothing here. Like, there are a couple episodes I really enjoyed. I think my favorite episode might be the one where they have to race with that hut, like changing the rules and all that. But other than that, there is just nothing here. Like, just I just don't care. Yeah, it's not bad, not good. Just kind of I don't really know. And now onto the Bad Batch, which I also don't have too much to say about Bad Batch, but I think this is a good show. Oh, I've seen a lot of people say it's just okay, but no, I think it's good. Where they were pretty okay in the Clone Wars season 7, but then this show comes and like it really makes them better characters in my opinion. Where I actually do want to see where they go. Oh, like it's really interesting seeing what the clones do after Order 66, and like the transition from clones to stormtroopers. Like, if for all the people who think stormtroopers are clones, this show disproves that. Like, I just can't believe there's people out there who still think that. And then you also have Omega. She's like, okay, I'm curious to see where she goes. And Crosshair is also really interesting, the way he goes against the rest of the team. And Hunter is probably my favorite character. That's mainly because it really focuses on him the most out of all the team members. And yeah, this is a good show. I'm curious to see what season 2 is going to be. Because like apparently Palpatine's back, so that's going to be interesting. And yeah, that's Bad Batch. And with that being said, my Star Wars tier list is complete for now, at least. We still have a lot more coming in the future. I've mentioned a few of them again, and we've got Andor, Bad Batch season 2, and then Mando season 3, Ahsoka. We have the new Taika Waititi movie coming, that Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron movie. We have just there is still a lot of Star Wars coming, which I'll admit maybe we don't need that much, but I'm fine with it. Just so yeah. Yeah. I don't really have much else to say. Just that's my tier list, and yep. So peace.